What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? This episode is going to be about all that jazz. We have Jazz Hampton, who is running for mayor of Minneapolis, with us, and we just want to say thank you for coming in today, and just tell us who you are. Like, what's going on in your life? Who is Jazz?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. Big fan of the show and of you all individually. My name's Jazz Hampton. Like you said, I'm running for mayor of Minneapolis. Obviously, I live in Minneapolis right now, but I've lived within like a 7-mile circle for my whole life of where I'm sitting right now. That includes, high school. I went to St. Thomas for undergrad and law school. I've been here my entire life around this area. Now my wife and I are raising our 3 kids in this house in South Minneapolis.
Go on a vacation somewhere. Get out of here for a minute.
Hey, listen, I've gone on vacation. I haven't lived anywhere else. They wouldn't even accept me into study abroad programs. I guess my grades weren't good enough at the time. So, but it's all good.
Probably not a great sell for a candidate. Hey, I'm a solid C minor student. Couldn't quite get that study abroad trip I wanted.
Yeah, C's get degrees. That's what I was saying at the time, and it worked out. They let me into law school though, so who knows where it all shook out. I was just trying to go to Thomas will take.
There you go. St. Thomas will take the money though. If you're willing to pay, they're like, no problem. I went to St. Thomas for undergrad too, so I got to make that joke.
I love it
about the student loans I still am paying off.
Same, yeah. And ironically, not only am I still paying off those student loans, I now teach a class at St. Thomas, and I'm like, you guys want to give me a break here? You're really nice.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, so now I'm running for mayor here in Minneapolis. I'm sure we'll dive into it, but I was a corporate lawyer for 8 years. I started as a public defender when I was in law school. And I did corporate law for 8 years, and then after the tragedy of George Floyd, I left to build a company that addresses how that variance and how that interaction started. And I've been running that business for the last 5 years with my co-founders. On the side, I'm on 3 nonprofit boards, and I teach at St. Thomas, and I hang out with our 3 kids that are 7 and under. So my wife and I are very busy folks.
So lots of spare time to do mayor stuff. I see.
Yeah. So I was like, what else can I do? Let's try this mayor.
Right.
Yeah. I've got like these 7 extra minutes in my day free. I just have no idea what to do with them. So yeah, okay. Well, that is a lot here. I guess I have a bunch of questions about a bunch of that. First off, You're teaching at St. Thomas. What are you teaching?
So I teach a class that's called Entrepreneurial Finance, which I got to say, my students are, between 19 and 23 years old, but all of them either want to start a business tomorrow or have already started one, but they're looking at like, how do I actually grow it? And it's not just, there are some that have lawn care businesses or snowplow businesses. There's others who want to build complicated flower growing systems for the side of downtown Minneapolis buildings, right? The whole span of things, but they don't know how to start a business. I've learned how to start one and what not to do. And a lot of the things that I'm teaching them is like things I've messed up on. It's like, please learn from my mistakes so you don't have to make them. And so that's what I'm teaching. I've been teaching that for the last couple of years now. And I really enjoy it because it's not like teaching like a theology class to a business major that doesn't have any interest in it. They all really care and want to do it tomorrow. And so I really, really enjoy that. And it's a little ironic because if you'd asked me in 2019 if I would have been teaching entrepreneurial finance, I would have said I've never started a business and I don't know anything about it. But after running a business for 5 years, I have a crash course MBA in the area.
Well, that is super interesting because I really assumed when you said you were teaching at St. Thomas that it had something to do with law because you have a law degree and we're a practicing corporate lawyer, which is an interesting look. We want to talk about that too. But first your business. What is your business right now?
Yeah. So our business is called TurnSignal, and it's an app that anyone can have on their phone. And when you're being pulled over or if you've been in an accident, you open the app and you press one button and it instantly starts recording the interaction with your front-facing camera. And then an attorney shows up on the screen on a video call instantaneously within 15 seconds to not only tell you what your rights are, but to guide you through that interaction in the best way possible. And our mission is, obviously, we built this after the tragedy of George Floyd, and our mission is simple. It's to protect rights, to de-escalate these interactions and to get everyone home safely. And it started as an idea. And the other thing I should say is if you press it in Pine City, you're connecting with an attorney that practices law here in Minnesota. If you press it in Nebraska, a lawyer that practices law there, or Arkansas, Alabama, or Florida, it's a lawyer that practices law in that jurisdiction that's talking to you as well. And it started as an idea that we started building in October of 2020. Fast forward now, we have over 200,000 lives that are being covered by the platform. It's an employee benefit at Google and Zillow and companies all through the state of Minnesota. And if you are low income, if you say, hey, I don't think I can afford this, we give it to you at no cost. Over about 20% of our users have never paid a penny for our services, and we still connect them to an attorney instantly when they need one.
That is incredible on a few incomprehensible ways. Like, first of all, how do you have enough attorneys on hand to just be connected within 15 seconds? Like, I've got no tech support in my life at all. I can't even get the AI bot to respond to me in 15 seconds on any of my tech support.
You know what's wild about it? I am so I get so pissed now at those like tech support lines because we built one now. I'm like, come on, guys, I could get an attorney faster than this. It took 4 years to build the nationwide network. So when we launched in May of 21, we were only live in Minnesota. So you can only download and have the app in Minnesota. Then we flew down to Georgia, and I knocked on lawyers' doors that I had never met before. And then we did California and Texas and so on, piece by piece over the course of 4 years, building up the network. One of the great secrets is some of those attorneys practice law in multiple jurisdictions. So we have a retired judge from Scott County, Minnesota, who retired to, as the old folks do, to Arizona from Minnesota. And he has a license in both areas. And so he answers calls in both states. And it really helps when it's, midnight here or 2 a.m. here and it's only midnight there. It makes it even easier in that process. So it just took 4 years to build the network, and it's always building, right? We don't get to stop now. I always say it's kind of like once you like hit your weight loss goal, you don't like, all right, I'm done going to the gym. You got to keep going.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's amazing that you're being altruistic enough to give it to, honestly, the people who probably need it the most are the people who can't afford it, unfortunately, with the way that our society works. But we were talking a little bit beforehand, and you said that this isn't really your dream business. You got a different dream business, which is what?
Sorry, what?
You're saying, we were talking a little bit before the episode, and you were saying that this really isn't your dream business, though. Like, you have a dream business, and what's the dream business you want to start here?
Yeah, I think because TurnSignal, the way that we built, we brought on folks to help us build it financially, and my dream is a lifestyle business. Like a lifestyle business where you have 8 employees, 15 employees, 20 employees, and you're just making enough where everyone can pay their bills and get a nice Christmas bonus at the end of the year, and it's not super high stressed. Building a Mondo company.
So what is, because I hear lifestyle business thrown around a lot, and I've got no fucking idea what a lifestyle business is. I just feel like it's a catch-all umbrella term for just like, hey, this is a thing that has no real classification. So what is your lifestyle business, and what is a lifestyle business as a whole here?
Yeah, and I think that you point out a great that's something you should decipher, that it's like saying, like, I want a nice house, and a nice house in California on the beach versus a nice house in Rush City, Minnesota is a much different expectation. And to me, a lifestyle business is one where you get a contract to drive the large accessible buses. There's a contract in Minnesota or in Minneapolis to drive those large accessible buses. It's not the city that does that. It's a 5-year contract that pays a lot of money, and you employ a specific amount of people, and you know how much money you're going to make over those 5 years. That's your one job. You hire the whether it's 25 or 45 people to do the work, and it just continues. It's not like, how do we now scale this to 45 more states? And then It's not about scaling and selling at a multiple of 10x your revenue. It's about making enough income to employ people and that they have good work and steady pay. And your stress level is not always chasing something bigger. So that could mean that you're making $5 million a year or $2 million a year. But it's the level of stress and chasing a bigger number that you try to avoid in that business.
Right. Okay, that is not the answer I expected, because like when people talk about lifestyle stuff, I always picture like influencer type, like clothing brands or workout equipment, or like, protein shakes and shit. And
Herbalife, baby.
Of yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, never that. No, it's more about, because listen, if you build a venture-backed business, right? If you say our business is worth $5 million, we estimate, and we're going to take in $2 million of investment dollars. Now your business is worth $7 million, and those folks are expecting to 10x their money, which means you're later going to sell for $70 million, which means you have to be having revenue that is, $10 million annually. And that forces you to chase more and more and more and more. And you can't just be a good lifestyle business that brings in money. You're chasing more and more dollars. And that's, that's the dream of the kids that are watching a lot of Gary Vee videos. But I'd like a normal lifestyle business any day.
I think that's an admirable aspiration, I guess. Obviously, I'm the son of a small business owner, and yeah, it's constantly the stress of trying to keep your head above water and grow, because you feel like if you grow and you get to that next step, things get easier, and they never do, and then it's just further to backslide. So that's interesting. Go ahead.
One of my favorite in our office every day or so, we always ask a brain teaser question. And one of my favorite questions is, how much money would it take for you to never desire or have to go to work again? And what's funny is that's a good indication of the lifestyle that people are chasing and going towards. Or some people will say 50 million, and it's some people want private jet money. I would never work again if I could have a private jet. And I'm like, man, I wasn't even going to think Delta One. I'm just trying to consistently get on a plane. There's different levels to it.
Yeah. I have a buddy who we always are I went to St. Thomas for business undergrad, and he is a lawyer who he went to the U of M for law school, and we're we love collaborating and doing things, and could we make a business? Could we find something? And I've, in my political education over the last 5 or so years, where I really got interested in politics, back then I would have been yeah, let's do something. Let's make as much money as we can. And now I'm actually, let's just start a co-op where, everybody shares profits, and we all just try to make sure everybody gets a living wage. And he's yeah, that'd be fine. He's not even crazy about making money. He was just yeah, I was looking for passive income, and I'm it's not really how co-ops work generally the best, but we can probably still make something work.
I get it, man. I get it. That's awesome.
So you're doing all this, and then what made you decide to run for mayor? Where did that? Oh, actually, first, before we get to that, jazz. Is jazz on your birth certificate? I gotta know.
Even when I was a lawyer in courtrooms, I wasn't asked this question as much as I have been in the last 4 months, which is funny, because I think people do try to do unique names to stand out. No, my full name, it's even more surprising. My first name is Jazz, J-A-Z-Z. My middle full name is just the letter A, and then my last name is Hampton. So my full name is Jazz A. Hampton. But I don't even have the best name in my family. My sister's name is Sunshine with 2 capital S's. So my parents were out here doing the most with our names. But
what? All right, I we need to dig a little bit into your parents. What were your parents doing in the '60s? I guess
right. The first question is always were they hippies? And do they love jazz music? And the answer to both is no, which makes it actually wilder. But I think they just Summer is a more normal outside of the box name, and I think they're just striving for something like Summer, Sunshine instead. And then for me, I'm the youngest of 4, and my parents say my older brother Reese was a lot to handle, and they wanted me to be smooth jazz. It didn't work. I was just as rambunctious, but yeah, and honestly, I don't know. I think you just get really used to whatever you know, and I've always loved my name. I've been proud of it, and now, but in this space, I do find, even with the sign, I think folks, you'll see Wu-Tang Forever yard signs or something like that, and I think folks sometimes think that of these signs, and I was I'm gonna put my face on it or something so they know that this is serious.
Sorry, in the comments, somebody's like, your parents had a missed opportunity. Your middle name should have been Hands.
Yeah, see? That would have been... All right. Hey, I can always change it.
That's true. I immediately thought Jazz Fred Hampton, for like going back to Fred Hampton. But, you know, Jazz Hands Hampton also has its unique aspects there, too.
Yeah.
But honestly, like A, so they're like, all right, we're going with the super unique first name, and then the middle name, just fucking letter. I'm out. I've used all of my brain power on coming up with, I want this kid to be smooth as jazz. Fucking A. And that's where they left it. And so, have they explained that one to you?
They have. My brother is named after, his middle name is after, both my brothers have a middle name or a name after a grandpa. And they wanted to give me a name after my grandma's. And one is Alice and one is Alberta, so they just took the A. They could have said Al, is what I've thought of in recent days. Like,
Al
they could have given
good.
Yeah. But, you know, here we are. So it's like, Jazz A. I got that a lot when I was growing up, you know, so, but it's all good. I love it. I've always loved my name.
No, that is great. I mean, I think you're absolutely right for owning it like you do. And it is memorable, which is nice, especially handy, you know, when you're running for office, so...
Absolutely.
So that's good.
Absolutely.
And I guess that was then the next question is, why did you decide to run for mayor? How did that decision come about?
Yeah, you know, so the work that I do is all of the work I've done in my life, I always say are like tributaries to like one river that is running for mayor. And then at the same time, in Minneapolis, we have 13 city council members and one mayor. And they are consistently and always at odds. One of our city council members described it as a toxic relationship. Like they struggle to get along. They are not on the same page, and they're all 13 Democrats that are on the city council and a Democratic mayor. And the tension feels higher than it does on the federal level. It's a lot. And frankly, I believe I'm a person that can stand in that tension and be a part of difficult conversations. Sometimes when you have to stand in the tension and be the leader of an organization in a strong mayor system that we have in Minneapolis, that's what you have to be. And the buck has to stop with you. If 13 people aren't getting along and you as their leader aren't doing a good job ensuring everyone is working together, that is your responsibility, and the buck has to stop with you. I think that's also why coming from leading an organization is a benefit in this day and age for this particular kind of role. And listen, and politically, I have so much in common with everyone across these spectrums. One side, we have a very progressive portion of our city council, and by very progressive, I want to quantify that for people who aren't in Minneapolis or Minnesota. Endorsed by the Democratic Socialists of America, they're DSA candidates, right? And so they have different values than someone who is from a different portion of the city that is not DSA affiliated, and there's a lot of friction that happens there. But when I sit down with those DSA, hopefully my soon-to-be colleagues, I say to them, hey, we might not agree on every single issue, but like I can promise you something. I'm going to show up and I'm going to sit down at this table until we can find a pathway forward that we can agree on. And that trust is based on building TurnSignal, something that helps people in their moment of need. I'm also a pro bono attorney, and I've represented Marvin Haynes, who was arrested at 16 and thrown in jail at 16 years old for a crime that he never committed. And he spent 19 years in prison. And we picked up the case through the Great North Innocence Project, and I was one of the 3 pro bono attorneys that represented him, and we fought for his freedom. And now him and I have Thanksgiving dinner together every year, right? I care about that stuff. Yeah. You do, because you did corporate law, which I wasn't going to pick on too much, but obviously that's the big evil type of law that most of us hate, right? But like, yep. I didn't realize that you could practice both corporate and criminal, or how did that work? Yeah. Yeah, so I'll break down kind of my trajectory. So when I was in law school, I started as a public defender. When you're in law school, you can be a practicing public defender. So I did that in Anoka County, so I was dealing with folks in like Ham Lake, and then I also did it in Ramsey County for 2 years. When I graduated, I was looking at the mountain, as you were saying, I was looking at the mountain of student debt that I had, and I just wanted to become a really, really good courtroom lawyer. Maybe I'll send it to you guys after this, but when I was in my final year of law school, I wrote this letter. I took an ethical leadership class, which is not a required class in law school. and I took this ethical leadership class, and one of the things you had to do is write a credo and a eulogy about what your life looked like when it was all said and done. And what I wrote was, I want to become a corporate lawyer so I can become the best courtroom lawyer that I can be. And then I want to leave that work to become an advocate for my community with the skills and knowledge that I've attained. Now, did I think I was going to work at like the ACLU or something? Yes. Like I thought I was going to go to corporate law and go do that. And like, because to work at the ACLU, you have to graduate from like an Ivy League school or the University of Minnesota or Michigan Law, or come from a really great law firm. And so I thought that's what I was going to try to do. Instead, I started TurnSignal. But yeah, so you can do all of that. You can be a corporate lawyer. And then I'm just on the board at the Great North Innocence Project. And then when we have a case that's going to go to trial, they say, can anyone raise their hand and do this work? And often it is actually corporate lawyers that jump in and are the pro bono attorneys. And it was just ironic because the person that was behind bars, like we grew up 7 miles from each other, and he was 2 or 3 years older than me.
Sure.
My family adopted his nephew. Like we were the foster parents and then adoptive parents of his nephew, and I didn't know that until after he was released from jail or from prison. So like he was just someone that was my age that just ran into the legal system, and his whole life is way different because of it. So yeah, I do that work, and I also run a business that is trying to grow to be really large. I teach entrepreneurial finance. I live in a part of Minneapolis that is not represented by a DSA city council member. And so what I'm trying to do in this moment is to stand in this tension and say like, hey, my neighbors and the parents of the kids that my kids go to school with, like, you know me, and you would trust that I could lead the city really well from a financial perspective because I teach this in school and I run my own business and I manage a profit and loss statement. But also to my activist friends, I'm in the trenches with you. And we need someone that can stand in that and be able to speak to both groups and do it well.
So what are some of the like bigger friction points that you've seen between some of the DSA city council members and I guess just regular DFL candidates? I don't know if they're involved with something so small as the city council.
Yeah, the typical things that we saw within the city was how to address affordable housing needs. Do we do rent control? Do we do other provisions? Do we do other backstops? The relationship between employees and owners of those businesses, especially restaurants, we've struggled with a lot in Minneapolis. And we had a labor standards board conversation that went through during the last cycle as well. And there's friction at those places, all the way down to a sidewalk shoveling program within the city of Minneapolis where they wanted to shovel all sidewalks, right? A lot of tension where, again, these DSA folks are saying like, hey, these are services, social services that we really think would benefit our city and the people. And then the other folks on the other end of the spectrum are saying, we don't know if it's possible or if we can afford it or other pushbacks that they have. But they aren't having the conversation anymore.
Pay for it.
yeah. And then you know, and that person, the people on the other end that will say, we just raised our property taxes by 6.8%, and downtown people are leaving downtown, and the tax basis from the businesses downtown and in uptown is dwindling, and so because there's so much tension, conversations have stopped. One of the city council members said, we asked the mayor to meet consistently recently. And he said, I won't meet with you every other week. And if I do, 3 of you have to show up, not just 1 of you. Right? Like this isn't fostering the relationship we need within the city to push things forward.
I mean, I do think that is... Sorry, Taylor, did you guys want else to say?
No, it's a very turbulent time for most metro areas across the nation. So, like, understandably, I'm sure this isn't... A lot of those things are not unique to Minneapolis.
No,
but it definitely still issues, right?
I think that is to something that we haven't put enough focus on. That since COVID, the world has obviously changed in a lot of pretty significant ways, and one of those is that work from home has become obviously much more common, and I think that as a society, that's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah, obviously. I think that as a society, obviously, this is good. It's better for the environment with less, unnecessary commuting. It's better for people's mental health, not having, again, sitting hours in the car every week. It's safer for people if you're not having to drive, especially, up here in Minnesota where half the year you're taking your life in your hands, when you go out on the roads. but also that means that, what people don't realize is, like, your residential property tax isn't what pays most of the bills in localities. It is commercial property tax. And commercial property tax, especially in a big city, is paid by those big downtown buildings, and those big downtown buildings usually existed so people had a place to go into the office. And now a lot of companies have decided that it's just, they don't need the overhead because they can have their people work from home. And so that has taken a lot of that revenue out of... Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are still trying, or a lot of companies are still trying to force their people to come back to work. And again, it's one of those things where, like, you don't think about it until it happens. That this is one of those consequences of one of these things that I think we all agree, yeah, we have the technology. Why don't more people work from home? Why don't we allow more people to work from home and give them that autonomy? And this is one of those kind of unforeseen consequences. And, like, do you have sort of, because I think all of us sitting here can agree that, yeah, sidewalk shoveling programs and just social safety nets in general are good, and we should figure out how to pay for those. But property taxes, I am not a huge fan of residential property taxes to begin with. Like, annual residential property taxes, I have some serious problems with. Do you have ideas on that you think, because this is always going to be on local politics, probably the biggest factor on how people vote and what they support is, how much money am I going to have to pay on my property taxes? Because that's the biggest thing that city councils and mayors affect. So where are you going with that? How would you have ideas, solutions for that?
Yeah, if this has to be addressed in the whole city, but I'll start by talking about downtown. If you're familiar with downtown Minneapolis, you know that there's one strip of a street that is downtown Minneapolis right now. It's called the North Loop. It's like one area where anyone from the 20-somethings to 50 go, and you can live there, you can eat there, the best restaurants are there, the cool, trendy coffee shops are there, people live and work in that area. And what that proves to me is people still desire that type of living model and value that. But what we haven't done is replicate that in other parts of downtown Minneapolis. There's kind of, you could say 5 to 6 pockets of downtown Minneapolis, and what I believe we have to do is be just like the boroughs in New York, where we make them different and competitive with each other based on living desire from the outside in. I'm not saying that in the heart of downtown Minneapolis in the IDS Tower we should make that residential, but in Mill City by the Guthrie Theater, where we have an opportunity to fill up those buildings, we need to do that so that restaurants have value actually existing in that space, and coffee shops and bookstores and places that you can walk to.
That would honestly be a legit place to live. Like, Mill City. Man, that would be a pretty. I mean, it'd be hipstery as fuck, but that would be a pretty legit place to.
But that's the thing is, like, I don't. When I say that, I because you're exactly right. I don't want to replicate the North Loop, young millennial vibe in all the places. I want downtown East, which is kind of like just south of the U.S. Bank Stadium. I want that to be like where immigrant restaurants exist, kind of like Eat Street, where like this is the best place to go to get first generation owned restaurants that have authentic food, right? They should have different vibes, and they don't have to all be hipster vibes. But here's the thing. I hear people say like, oh, well, Target, U.S. Bank has to get people to come back into the office 5 days a week so we can build back downtown. You know what's better than forcing people into the office 3 or 4 days a week? Having people live there 7 days a week. And like that this is their neighborhood and community, and that's what we need to do. But of course, I'm not pretending like there's not a chicken or the egg, right? It's hard to convince a coffee shop to go in before people start living there, and it's hard to get people to start living there without a coffee shop there yet. I do think it's easier to get people there first and build around it. If there's already a sign that says like coffee shop coming fall of 25, right? Like that can get people there and be tangible. And then
so you're saying mixed use? You're saying mixed use zoning is like a useful thing? What? That's so weird.
And that is also because to your point of I don't want to drive downtown. It's like, well, if you live 8 blocks away, it's a lot easier to allow me to come into the office, and I'm a lot more willing to. And maybe I want to get out of my house anyways on a Wednesday or Tuesday. That just makes it more tangible and possible.
For sure. for sure.
I think that's brilliant. That's way better than any answer I guess I expected you to give. Sorry, go ahead, Taylor.
No, that was a really good answer. I mean, I've read, like, since COVID, I've been reading articles about how the commercial property is, like, basically failing and falling out under itself. And there's, like, this apocalypse looming of, like, multiple giant city metro areas that are going to go bankrupt because commercial properties aren't being rented out. And they're like, well, what can we do? It's like, well, just transform them into housing. And then everybody's like, they're actually not built that well for housing, and it's really difficult. And then they're just like, well, we tried. And like that's sort of what I get.
The millennials are killing commercial real estate articles yet? Because it's been a while since I've had a good millennials are killing this demographic of commercialism.
True. Yeah, no, I haven't seen them blame millennials specifically, but just remote workers in general, which are probably a lot, mostly millennials. So,
right. I am surprising. I mean, that used to be like you couldn't be in journalism without writing a millennials are killing, napkins this week article for a good solid decade and a half, 2 decades.
Yeah.
We were the scapegoat for quite some time.
Still are.
Yeah, true.
All right, so I think that's an incredibly solid argument to make as a mayor. You'd be selling me if I could vote for you at this point. So let's talk about kind of what you're up against. And here's the thing that I'm outside of metro politics, so I get very specific views from people who live there, and then obviously, I have to deal with the people around here who call it Murderapolis and are, I will not live in fear and wear a mask, but I need to be strapped 6 ways to Sunday if I got to pump gas in, Minneapolis. And so I have a very weird perception. I love the cities. I don't have to experience a lot of the problems because I get to go there for fun stuff and then go home. But I've noticed, and even Taylor will attest to this, that even the people that kind of seem to live there have 2 opinions of the current mayor, who's been mayor for a while. How long has Frey been mayor?
2 terms, so 8 years, and he's looking for another 4-year term.
Okay, so Frey's been there for 8 years, and the 2 opinions I've seen of him are people either hate him with a burning passion or have 0 opinion of him whatsoever. And Taylor, you were kind of in the 0 opinion boat, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, so I lived in Minneapolis before, well, actually, he got in 2014. I would have left college in 2012. So, yeah, I was probably out of Minneapolis right around when he got in. But I just, you hear some things that are controversial, and then you see one article where it's like, okay, that's a thing that I think is reasonable. So, like, I don't know that from an outsider, if I was living in Minneapolis, I would look a lot more into it, obviously, being a politically engaged person. But from the outside, I guess I wouldn't necessarily, like, if it were on a ballot, like, I don't know that I would be like, yep, I think he needs to go. Like, absolutely. But I guess, that's...
What you're describing is absolutely the case. And here's a good way to put that into numbers. His approval rating during the last election in 2021 was 31%, but he still won handily. So, like, so how does that happen, right? It happens because people did not believe any candidate that was present was viable in the face of what he's doing. Or there's this perception, these are my words, not anyone else's, there's a perception that is felt that the city council is doing things that some of the voting blocks don't like or don't appreciate, and he is vetoing them and protecting them from that thing happening. He used more vetoes this last year than have ever been used in the city of Minneapolis. And so there's people saying, like, yeah, I don't like the guy, but, like, at least he's vetoing these things I disagree with. And here's my stance on that. My dad was in the military. He was a Green Beret paratrooper, and he jumped out of hundreds and hundreds of planes in his life. And he only used his reserve parachute once. And when you use your regular parachute and you land on the ground, you pack it back up and you use it again the next time. And that packing, that process is ensuring that you're doing the hard work, the right work, so that it works the first time. Jumping out of a plane and praying then and anticipating that you're going to be using your reserve every time is not the right way to go about it. And vetoes are just a reserve parachute. Thank God you used it. And maybe it saved our lives. But if you're jumping out of the plane every time anticipating using your veto, you aren't doing the hard work of the packing of the parachute well to avoid getting in that place in the first place. And that's what people are struggling to see a little bit. And that's what we're trying to raise awareness to. So yes, if he's vetoing all these things, well, what if he could have gone back in the room and got the proposal to a landing place where everyone was comfortable with it and we didn't have to veto something? That's what we're missing right now in the city of Minneapolis.
So
For sure, I do see a lot of veto stuff on almost all the controversial topics. It's like he's going against the city council every single time. And some of the city council stuff is like seems a little pie in the sky, but other times it's like, well, there's probably a middle ground that could be reached that makes people a lot happier than just the status quo.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and and that's right. And the thing is, if it's pie in the sky and you're refusing to meet with those folks, or you're not meeting with them in the hopes that they have, then you're never going to move. And of course you're going to veto something because it didn't move off of the first presented idea that was on the table.
For sure.
I think that this speaks to kind of, as an outsider's perspective, sort of the image I have of him is he's been offered a lot of times to shine and do something and has fumbled that ball pretty much every time, obviously on a national scale with George Floyd and now the ICE raids that have happened in Minneapolis. So it sounds like this is kind of his MO of he has these opportunities to shine just on a day-to-day legislative aspect of, hey, we could come back and I could do some real leadership here and make some hard decisions and do some decent negotiating and come to the best outcome for the people that I represent, or I could just do my best to take the easy way out and not really accomplish anything. And I feel like that's a really good explanation or a really good description of kind of how he's handled the big high-profile stuff that's happened. And you were on the ground. Obviously, George Floyd was a pivotal moment in your life, it seems like, and now the ICE raids. You said you were on the ground there for those. And so just tell us about that, his reactions to that, how you would have handled both of those situations differently.
Yeah, I'll start with the most recent raid on Lake in Bloomington a couple weeks ago. Again, it feels like a year ago already. I was leaving a meeting about how to revitalize downtown with some of the leadership from the tourism board. And as soon as I got out of the meeting, I had 3 or 4 text messages. One from a city delegate, one from from a local politician. I was like, this is what's happening. And I saw it, and I had a very important meeting, and I called and I canceled that meeting. I just shot down there. And when I got out there, I saw like vans driving. I saw people, I'm not exaggerating, a full 3 people couch, 2 people picking that up and throwing it in the street. I saw trash cans being thrown. I saw police macing or pepper spraying, whatever the chemical was that they were using. I saw them pushing. I saw shoving. I saw shouting. I saw machine guns. I saw I shouldn't say machine gun. I saw assault rifles. I saw it all. I saw police officers. I shouldn't say police officers. ATF agents, FBI agents acting so aggressively that it was shocking. I made eye contact with a Minneapolis police officer during one of the points where someone had a softball and threw it at this person, and then it hit them, and they ran back and grabbed it again and threw it again. And then this guy came through and just threw someone on the ground. And I looked at the police, I was like, come on, man, get your boy, get him. And he's like, I know, I'm trying. And so all of this chaos, but but ICE was there. And here's my belief too, how I would have handled the situation. The city of Minneapolis does not cooperate with civil ICE actions, right? And so if they're going to do that, they aren't going to tell us. But let me make something clear. If they were going to execute an FBI raid of Walter White's house in Carver, Minnesota, I guarantee they'd call the Carver Police Department and say, hey, Carver, Walter White is making meth over here, and we're going to go bust this area. Just want to let you know, and we'd love some support. It's a meth house, and we're going to go do that. They intentionally hid the fact that they were doing it in an incredibly dense immigrant community with folks who are already terrified to even exist, to go to work, to literally go to work, to get a W-2 and pay taxes on, right? Like, they're scared to go to work. And rolling in two, I'll call them armored vehicles, tanks, whatever they were, Humvees.
MRAPs, yeah.
Yeah, and with full military fatigues, like, you aren't even camouflaged. This is a city. Like, what are you trying to camouflage with? It's ridiculous. It's overly burdensome. The Hennepin County Sheriff's Office evidently already knew about it. If we don't know about a raid because you're claiming that, and you're still claiming that is a drug raid, someone's lying, like that, or someone's being disingenuous, I could say, because if it's truly a drug bust, you would have told us. And because it wasn't. And even if they have a list of 50 drug busts to do, the FBI or the ATF, if they have a list of 50 to do, and then 3 of them had immigrant populations connected to them, do you think that they moved them up to the top and it made it a priority when they're doing all of those ICE raids in multiple cities across the country? Yeah, of course. And so I wish that we would have stood up and said that. I wish we would have stood up and said, our police department didn't know what was going on, and as soon as we found out that ICE was present, we went and tried to set up a barrier and protect our citizens, because that's what police are here to do. But also not pretend like it wasn't ICE and it wasn't immigration related or a task force. I mean, ICE took credit for it. They talked about it, right? And so it's disingenuous to pretend like ICE didn't have a part of this and it wasn't made to strike fear into the hearts of that community. Don't get me wrong. If there is a drug house that the FBI needs to raid and it's in Minneapolis and some of those folks are undocumented immigrants, I want the police department to arrest people that are making drugs. And then they can go through the due process of our criminal court. Like, that is how it works. And I'm all for that. But
also, to execute a warrant, though, you don't need a full fucking platoon of Gravy SEALs to roll in there and pretend like it's Fallujah to do that. Like, you need a few uniformed officers or dudes in suits. I mean, the FBI used to wear suits or their black windbreakers and shit, and just you knock on a door. You cover the exits and you knock on a door, right? Like, that's how you execute a warrant. I don't understand why. I mean, I do understand why they did this, but like, there's no reasonable explanation for their explanation to have handled this in this way. And that's where I think it gets really frustrating, is everybody trying to justify this as an, so you're just okay with people selling drugs or making drugs or whatever the fuck their front page explanation for this is. And it's like, no, that's not it. It's that this has never been done this way before for a reason. This is not the proper way to do it. It's not an efficient or effective way to do it. And that's not why they were doing it. They were doing this to send a message and to push boundaries to see what they can get away with. At least that's my perspective on this. And I think that is incredibly dangerous and harmful. And I was incredibly heartened to see the reaction from Minneapolis residents. I mean, I think that was the right reaction from the citizens that live there. But, like, as a mayor, what can you, or what could you do to, A, help protect citizens and prevent this kind of dangerous incursion from paramilitary forces that don't belong there and should not be allowed to do this, from doing that?
Yeah, I think the big part of it is both communication and forward planning. Like, those tanks didn't just appear out of nowhere. They were stationed within our city for a few days prior to, and understanding as the city of Minneapolis, when those units are coming in and when they're being present, the FBI doesn't have to tell you when tanks are in your city. You should see the tanks in your city, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have to know that this is coming and see it coming and prepare from a police department perspective to say, hey, how are we going to be there to protect the residents that are there and are going to be voicing their opinions and trying to keep them safe in this moment? Because public safety in the city of Minneapolis, when it comes to ICE-related incidents, our public safety, our Minneapolis Police Department is there to protect those residents. And the other part of that is getting the information out to residents as quickly as possible, right? The reason that it would have been helpful for them to say, hey, Mayor of Minneapolis, we're going to do a drug bust tomorrow. Now the mayor knows. The second that happens, even if for some reason he finds out later that ICE is coming, they can put out information that says this is a drug-related bust. This is not, this is not an immigration enforcement. Or when you find out it is, communicate that as well. But that didn't happen, and that lack of communication is what caused a stir of emotions, rightfully so, from all that we've been through in this city. And I mean, I received the text, like I said, from 3 or so folks when I left the building. It would have also been nice to see the city of Minneapolis and the mayor's office saying, this is what's going on. We need to inform you. Of course, people got information from social media. It was the quickest and best way to gather that information at the time. So communicating up front and pre-planning to understand when this stuff is happening, when there is paramilitary, as you said, individuals descending upon the city, understanding when and what they're going to do.
Yeah, I agree. I do wish that there was more that both cities and states could be doing to resist this kind of federal government overreach. I'm still wondering where all the states' rights people are. They've been real silent lately. And that's strange to me. But I mean, it's not. But it's strange.
Yeah, right. It's convenient to pick when you want it to be states' rights and when you want it to be another topic. But Taylor, look like you were going to say something, but you were muted.
Yeah, no, I muted myself because I thought the dogs were going to bark. No, I guess the whole situation just is like it. To me, the biggest cluster like of all time with federal agencies working within Minneapolis, because like if there's legitimate issue, then totally it makes sense for ATF and DEA to be involved. I quite understand why ICE is there and involved if it's not an immigration issue. I could maybe understand Homeland Security, maybe, but still even kind of weird. Why wouldn't the ATF and FBI, along with local enforcement and DEA, be able to handle this? Why involve so many different agencies?
I don't even know why the ATF would have to be there.
Well, if they're
if there's firearms, they're trying to.
Right. Yeah. If you have drugs, probably
maybe.
I would assume there's firearms involved.
And the other part of that is there's a case that you study when you're in law school that talks about they're trying to discriminate against Asian Americans at the time that were owning laundromats. And they're trying to prevent them from owning laundromats, so they made a new law that said if you have this certain kind of wood paneling, which was common in Asian laundromats, then it was illegal because it was a fire hazard. We all know what they were doing. They weren't trying to prevent a fire hazard. They were trying to discriminate against a certain group of folks. And to be able to recognize that same kind of thing happening in this moment is, I think, what people were also longing for, to say, listen, ICE being there and you saying that it's not an ICE raid, but knowing that it's striking this fear into people's hearts when they even show up, it's disingenuous. Mm. That's a generous word that I'm using.
Oh,
right.
No,
and
you're running for office. We can say we can fill in the blanks for you on that one.
Appreciate it.
So all right, I think that we should move then to George Floyd. Obviously, that was, again, as you talked about, one of the pivotal moments in your life. Was an incredibly pivotal moment, not only in Minnesota history, but in American history, arguably world history. And Frey, I feel like no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you feel like Frey fumbled the ball and then butterfingered it all the way to wherever it ended up. If you're a Republican, you've got strong feelings about that, and if you're a Democrat, you have strong feelings about that. And it's hard, it's really easy. Hindsight's 20/20, and it's super easy to armchair quarterback, anything that you're not on the ground dealing with, especially in an instant situation. And so I want to give him obviously some grace in that situation. But I also feel like a lot of the blame that he should own, he has allowed the buck to be passed on to Governor Walz, and just has somehow slipped through just really taking any responsibility for how that all played out, good, bad, or otherwise. And I kind of want to get your perspective as a Minneapolis resident, and B, a person who may be in that position at some point to handle a similar situation, how you would have handled that differently, what you think should have been done from a mayoral perspective, And yeah, like, just again, outsider. I'm not downtown Minneapolis. I can't speak on that directly, but I do think that
Yeah.
there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, and you know what, I actually appreciate you saying of like it's easy to modern quarterback, because I agree with that. It's easy to look back and say coulda, woulda, shoulda, and it was a high stress, difficult moment. And so, you know, I try to look at his decision making through that lens, right? And I'll start with actually one thing that I think he handled relatively well. There was a giant movement at the time for people to say we want to remove or abolish the police department from the city of Minneapolis. And there were people yelling and screaming that at him. And in that moment, he stood firm. And he says it in every forum that we have. Like, he stood firm in that moment. And they shamed him, and he had to walk home with people yelling at him. And I think he stood firm by something that the majority of the city at the end of the day would have agreed with, although it didn't feel like it to him or to people present at the time. But here's the thing. I think that is a decision that he made that turned out to be the right decision. But he holds that up as if none of the other stuff happened, which it did. Like, with the destruction that happened on Lake Street, the things that occurred in the city for days and days on end, that happened. And so he did make that one decision, which I agree with, and I think it took a little bit of courage in that moment, or not a little bit, a good amount of courage in that moment. But what I struggled with is his inability to call in for additional help when folks needed it. His ability to say, hey, we're asking the Minneapolis Police Department to do the work that is outside of their wheelhouse in this moment. We cannot rightfully believe that they can handle all of the things that are coming at them right now. And I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that we should have come in with smoke bombs and water guns and push people out. We needed more human beings helping, and we didn't have enough, and not reaching out and tapping the governor or larger institutions to assist in that moment was the wrong choice, in my opinion. And here's,
I want to be clear on that point now too, because this is something that Walz gets a lot of heat for. Is he waited too long to send the National Guard in? But what a lot of people don't understand is the typical protocol, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is the chief of police in a city and the mayor of a city are supposed to request through a relatively specific process on bringing in National Guard, and specifically what type of National Guard support they need. Because, again, the National Guard does a lot of different things, has a lot of different roles, and you could end up with a bunch of cooks or a bunch of commandos or anything in between if you're not specifically saying, hey, this is what we need help with. And then it's also something along the lines of, everybody's, or most people should be rightfully frustrated with the fact that the federal government is trying to overstep in California right now.
Well said.
And that's because it's the governor's purview to issue and control the National Guard. He is the executive over the National Guard in their state. And to an extent, the mayor is the executive over their city. And in the same sense, it would be disrespectful and irresponsible for a governor to just march into a city and start making decisions on behalf of that elected official. Am I getting any of that wrong? Like, was Tim Walz out of line for not just going in and overstepping Frey and making his own decisions on the situation? I'd love to know your perspective there.
Yeah, I think I use this word a lot in this campaign. It was bad communication, in my opinion. I think that if Governor Walz was available and willing to give those resources and they weren't taken, then that is the city's fumble, without a doubt. And I know that they were available and they could have been tapped earlier than they were. I think there's a little bit of pride. I think there's a little bit of in the way that he didn't bow down to the protesters when they said defund the police in front of us today or abolish the police. The same wasn't true when they said, like, we have a right to be in these streets and to be protesting and doing these things. And I was at so many protests. Like, I was on that bridge when that semi rolled through in that one. I was there with my wife I went to them all. I also did the cleanup on Lake Street after one of the nights of civil unrest when a lot of Lake Street burned down, right? But I also know that at night a lot of chaos was happening, and I want to be really clear, as it was proven in the court system, there was outside agitators literally coming in and doing this stuff. and we had a need to protect the city from that stuff happening, and we didn't. And I think that was a gross failure, because we should have tapped onto those resources quicker. And in fact, this also comes down to like public works. We had things that we could have done with actual physical work, which again, public works is under the mayor's department, that we could have done to prevent some of this from happening as well. And we're talking all about reaction, and not about the underlying issue of how the police department their actions. The Officer Chauvin and the other officers on the scene created that situation. Right? That is the reason that all of this happened, and that also just wasn't. It wasn't taken care of. And to tie it back to what we were just talking about, I don't know if any of you have gone back and read the initial report that the police department put out about George Floyd's death, but it was like police were on scene and a suspect had a medical condition and went unconscious and died on the way to the hospital. Like, it said nothing about what actually happened, and so people didn't trust. People now don't have a trust for those press releases that are coming out, because they're like, we saw the one and then we saw the video. And if that video didn't exist, no one would know that initial statement wasn't true. So I think that also ties into, like, when we're talking about Lake and Bloomington, that's why people feel this way. Like, they rightfully are skeptical of based on their prior interactions.
Okay, so I want to touch back on that here in a minute, but going back to, if you were mayor in that position when the George Floyd unrest was happening, how would you have handled that differently than how Frey handled it?
I would have called in additional resources much earlier, and I would have ensured that the resources weren't there to harm. They were there to allow people to protest in a way that's peaceful, and when it was getting out of hand or things were getting damaged, or small restaurants and businesses on Lake Street that didn't have the insurance to recover from those damages were being attacked, that they protected those individual businesses that families are running. That's the thing, because again, I want people to be able to protest. I want them to be in the street. I want them to disrupt traffic in that moment for the tragedy that had just happened. I want that to be allowed. If we can have enough bodies present by calling additional resources in to prevent the damage to the buildings and to the businesses that were there, then I think that is a step that we should have taken that we didn't. But I think you pointed out a good thing. I'm not asking for them to come in with tanks and rubber bullets and start shooting people and harming people in a way that is not requisite to what we need to do in that moment. So yeah, there's a difference between like paramilitary individuals and individuals that are good at corralling crowds and helping ensure that things don't get out of hand. And that's what wasn't done. And frankly, it should have been for many, many days. It didn't come in for days at a time.
I think that's an incredibly important point, because I do struggle both just with my own perspective and, again, talking to people who have a very hostile view towards especially these types of protests and the causes that they represent, as, you know, like, oh, well, obviously they did all this damage, they did, and again, we can get into the nuance, which these people don't have the neural capacity to understand about. These are, you know, a lot of this was instigated by police, if we're being honest, by outside actors, by bad actors who are not members of the community, to try to elicit those responses, so these dumb fucks could have their talking points and their rhetoric to blame this back on the community. And so then when you start talking about calling in the National Guard to be a part of this kind of thing, it can have a visceral negative reaction of, this is just a way to quell our ability to show our discontent with the situation. And so I do think that is really important to clarify how those resources could be used. But ideally, those resources shouldn't have to be used, because these issues shouldn't exist. And we touched on that, you touched on that a little earlier, and I wanted to bring it back to that, is Minneapolis Police Department. Minnesota is such a weird place for so many reasons, and I think being as progressive as it is, and having such a notoriously flawed police department all at the same time, and you know, it gives very California vibes. Like, obviously LA is a super progressive place, and then obviously the LA Police Department is one of the most corrupt and violent police departments in the entire probably world, if we're being honest. And Minneapolis has like deep-rooted racism, deep-rooted history of problematic officers and abuse and violence. And this is something that, again, like, Chauvin wasn't the exception; he was the rule, and the rule just finally got videotaped. And how would you have, as mayor, again, Minneapolis Police Department would be under your purview. The police unions are an incredibly strong influence that put a lot of obstacles in the way of having any police accountability whatsoever. I mean, I remember at one point they were fighting against Ford because Ford was trying to put in a feature to sell to police departments to say, you know, it would let them know if officers weren't wearing their seatbelts. And they're like, no, that's violating their... Meanwhile, I can get a ticket for not wearing a goddamn seatbelt, but officers can't even have their superiors knowing about it. So, like, that's how hard the police unions will fight against accountability for their officers. And so I understand that it's a huge uphill battle to try to have any sort of law enforcement reform in that area, but it clearly needs to be done, and some reform would have made a difference in maybe preventing this altogether. And what would your plan have been had you had that ability, and what would you do now? Because I think arguably a lot of people, again, still do not trust law enforcement in general, for sure, and Minneapolis Police Department specifically, for good reason. And it would be under your purview to fix that, or try to.
Yeah. So I think you're right on so many levels. Here's one of the main issues I see. Like, we asked the police in Minneapolis to do a list of about 50 things, and it's a lot of things. And when I talk to the police officers, they're like, hey, not only do I not want to do 30 of those things, I'm not good at it. And it's not a good use of my time. I would rather be doing these 20 things. And so what I believe has to be true, and at a much higher level than we're doing now, we have to take those 30 things off of their plate, but it doesn't go away. You don't take it off their plate and throw it away. You have to ask other people that are qualified and want to do that work to do that work. You know, there's a number that, 70% of 911 calls are not immediate safety needs. It's like, and we're sending police out. I was literally at an event yesterday, and the police officer said, when I walked into the shift for the day, there were 24 active calls in Precinct 5 alone. 24 active calls, and he has 6 officers riding in 3 cars. So as a sergeant, he had to go out and run from domestic to accident to another thing. And we're asking them to do a lot of things that they shouldn't be doing, or don't want to be doing, I should clarify. And then also, we're struggling to have enough officers in the city then, because they're like, I don't want to do all those things. And I talked to so many police officers from the suburbs around Minneapolis. And what I hear time and time again, these are their words, not mine, is I don't want to be a part of the culture that is Minneapolis Police Department, and so I wouldn't want to work there. I hear that time and time again, where they're like, if I want to come in... Can you clarify
what that culture is?
Yeah, where it's a culture where if you see something that you don't believe is right, you are not encouraged to speak up or to do something, is what this individual who works in Shakopee told me. In the Shakopee Police Department. He's like, so I don't want to be walking uphill with no shoes on, if I can just work in Shakopee instead. And so the culture of the individuals that saw what Derek Chauvin was doing, and
blue line culture, then I guess is what you're really referring to.
Yeah, and but I think there's varying levels of that, right? The blue line culture of Shakopee or Burnsville is different than Minneapolis, and I also think they're interacting with more people more often and in different ways. And so we're struggling there too. So if we're asking them to do too much, if we're struggling to bring new people in, we can't go to calls. My car has been stolen in front of my house 2 times since we moved here 5 years to this house 5 years ago. I was standing outside at noon when my neighbor's car was burglarized on a Sunday. On this past Sunday, 3 days ago, someone opened my garage, stole my wife's electric bicycle, and then left the bike that they rode in stolen on that is still in my backyard because I called the non-emergency number and I got a voicemail. And then I called 911 and they said, we'll send someone out, and they never did. I have someone's bike in my backyard. I don't know whose it is. Like,
just a take a bike, leave a bike program, you know?
Yeah, it's like this is truly a nice ride. So here we are, and like, but they don't have time. They don't have time or resources or people to come out. Last story I'll tell, in the same house when one of our cars was stolen, they took my wife's debit card and they went to the Target in Uptown, close to our house, and on camera they bought a whole bunch of jeans and other stuff, and I flew up to that Target and I was like, pull the camera. I called 911. I'm gonna wait here. I waited for like an hour. And they finally came, and the guy who's operating the camera and zooming in on the guy who used my wife's debit card to buy stuff was like, I know his first and last name. He's in here all the time. Nothing ever came of it. Right? And so I want to be clear. When people are like, Minneapolis is like super dangerous, I don't want to go there, I disagree. I don't think
I was gonna say,
you're
not doing a really good job to quell the Murderapolis rumors here. Like, from the outside, it's like, oh, okay, it does kind of sound. It sounds like maybe they needed all that Fallujah gear for their raid down there.
But I don't think that. I think that the property crimes that I'm describing, they can't be addressed because they're running around to a million things. I was told recently that under 2% of stolen car crimes are handed to the Hennepin County Prosecuting Office. That means if a car is stolen, if 7,000 are stolen, only 2% are, they say, here's the person we think did it, we need you to charge it up. Right? Like, we aren't addressing those things. Now, do I think it's safe to walk to a Timberwolves game and then leave and go to a restaurant or do all of those things? I do. I think there's crime in our city like there's crime in any other city. But the problem is, when people experience it, they don't feel like it's being addressed. And that's the difference, and what creates this feeling that people have so much.
Well, that makes sense. Because I've spent a fair amount of time in Minneapolis, and I've never felt unsafe in that city whatsoever. But then again, I don't live down there, and I don't have property that can be, burglarized or vandalized in those situations. So I've got less skin in that game. But I do think that crime rates in Minneapolis are not higher than any other city of similar size, and I think that's what the defund the police movement and what you were talking about, Frey, earlier on. I don't think that is. It's always taken out of context. It's not. They think that the police should be gotten rid of altogether. It's that. I mean, yeah, I think that
there was defund and there was abolish, and there were some abolish folks in the city, but I think defund was democratic poor wordsmithing.
Oh my god, it was the dumbest fucking. It's like, hey, we got this great idea. How can we package this as horribly as possible? Let's smear some shit on it. It'll really sell it.
To be fair, I think I do think that some of that verbiage and that terminology was sort of created by the BLM movement and not necessarily by Democratic leadership, and then it's just sort of got co-opted, and which is not to say that like some of the things like abolishing the police in the way, historically speaking, like Black Lives Matter is talking about doing it like totally makes sense, but like in the way that you still need a unit in a city to assist citizens when property crime happens, when violent crime happens, when you need assistance in some sort of manner that is an emergency. You still need those people. So, like, it's difficult, and I don't even know that we really even found the right terminology that most accurately represents just like reform police. Well, that still doesn't actually quite do it because it's still we're talking about adding
defund the police. Refund the community.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe not. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Or take some things off the police officer's plate and have someone else do it.
Yeah.
That's not very snappy. That's not very snappy.
Not bumper sticker worthy. You gotta be bumper sticker worthy. If you can't get it out in like 20 syllables or less, people aren't going to pay attention to it.
In a podcast I did yesterday, I said if it fits on a bumper sticker, it's really bad policy.
It's true. But it's the only policy Americans can tolerate. So the American voting public cannot handle, anything. There's a character limit. It's like a tweet, old school tweet, not Trump's rant tweets. That's really.
So you would probably Frey has basically increased the budget for Minneapolis Police Department like every single time he's had the opportunity to, and hasn't really funded some of the community-led aspects of policing and the shifting of responsibilities away from an armed person to a non-armed person when it makes sense. You're saying that would be some of the first things that you'd want to be doing.
Yeah, and to be clear, they have started that. So they have these things called violence interrupters, which are folks from the community, let's say on the north side, that are in the community being there trying to prevent things from happening in the first place. They have a behavioral health unit that runs to a certain extent, but we still aren't diverting the calls in a real way. And again, as a business owner, I just look at so many of the things that are happening from that lens, and I'm like, oh, well, this is poor operations. Like, this is poor operational decision making. I've talked to so many folks that say, hey, we have everyone has a neighborhood text thread around here. Like, ours is called the Ewing thread because that's the street behind me. And when something happens, like, we're texting them. Did you guys hear that noise? When my garage went through, I texted and was like, does anyone have Ring camera, like, from their garage, And I was talking to someone, they're like, we had someone having a mental health episode in the alley, and no one on the text thread felt comfortable calling 911. Because if they came and they did something, they didn't want to feel like it was because of their decision that something happened to that person. And what I think our mayor would say back is like, well, we have behavioral health folks that we can send out. It's like, well, they don't know that. And they don't know that you have to call 911. It's their decision, and you hope that they make the right decision. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about, like, everyone knows to call 311 before you dig. Like, let's talk about the mental health resource that we can call instead of not trusting 911, right? There are operational changes that we can do to improve this as well. And I think that's also some of the advantages that you can bring in from not having just been in elected office and you're, spent your career there.
Well, it does sound like you have a unique ability to possibly have experience providing immediate services to people that need them, and at least helping an organization plan around providing more immediate services when it comes to situations like that. So
I gotta say, you're coming in,
make that happen.
Rolling in with the from the business perspective, sounding a little scary here on the left. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny.
We tried the business thing up at the top right now, and it's not going good.
That's not business. That's not business.
And also, he's super bad at business. So.
Right? Yeah.
He is very bad at business, but
it's funny because we have a strong mayor system, and I used to say, in a strong mayor system, the mayor is the CEO of the city, and I stopped saying that because people don't like CEOs and business leaders. Like, they don't like it. And, I'm still massaging language. I feel like a comedian that's like testing my stuff on stage. I've tried, team captain, I've tried manager, I've tried different things, but at the end of the day, the buck has to stop with the mayor because they're the leader of the 14 people that are making decisions in the city.
Yeah.
An equitable COO? I don't know. Like
no. You want to get away from any corporate terminology for sure. That's
somebody that doesn't make 365 times the annual salary of their average employee every single day, or something like that. I don't know.
Something like that.
No,
that's a great title.
I don't know. Team lead maybe. I don't know.
No. Team captain, I feel like, has been the most
team captain,
receptive.
Yeah, team
because,
captain.
Because the thing that I'm trying to conjure there is, like, we are all in this together and we are working together. I don't even like coach because that implies that, like, you're doing the work and I'm just watching. It's like, no, you got to be in the work too. Like, you and you also have to. The team captain, hopefully, is like the mature person. They're the adults in the room. That's like, hey guys, like, quit with the grab ass. We gotta get back to work and we gotta like do the thing. But you're still out there doing it with them. Yeah.
100%.
Well, I guess like
quarterback,
captain for military, likewise, like the highest operational type like unit is like a platoon or a company. It's led by a captain, and like they're literally on the ground versus you get above that to like major and they're like sometimes on the ground, but definitely not every day and not, side by side with their, troops. So I like it.
I love it.
I like that.
I love
I like that. Captain of the ship too, is on the boat, steering the boat. They go down with the boat like they're the person.
You guys, it's Captain. It's Captain. We got it.
Captain works.
And we have
all
three
right.
different captains to use.
Right.
Got that. All right. I expect my my campaign advisory check here in the mail by Monday.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right after my George Soros check gets here for all the protests.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So I've heard some kind of behind the scenes stuff about Fray 2 that has been a little disheartening and surprising. That may be some obstacles for you running here. One is that he's apparently got 2 packs, which for a mayor sounds fucking insane to me. Is that true? Do you know this?
I'll give the super high level, and if someone's watching this online, you can Google this really easy. There were 2 major PACs in the city. One, which was called Minneapolis for the Many, which is the progressive PAC. They support a lot of our city council members. The other that supports Mayor Fry is called All for Minneapolis. And that one is like if you go to All for Minneapolis, the Instagram, like the content is about the mayor and supporting him, and they have in the past. Because this is really important. In the city of Minneapolis, if you're running for mayor, an individual can only donate a maximum of $1,000 in the calendar year. And so, you can be best friends with Jeff Bezos. The most he can give your campaign is $1,000. However, you can form one of these PACs, and they can take in all the money they want and spend it all the ways that they want. The difference is you can't communicate with them.
Yeah,
so like
you can't communicate with them. Yeah, we all know how super PACs work.
Yeah, and so and then a new PAC was spun up called We Love Minneapolis this year, and that PAC focuses in on unseating a lot of those progressive city council members. And unseating them means an additional person that will vote alongside our current mayor. And so those 2 PACs have been doing that work this year, and they raised lots and lots and lots and lots of money. In a race where last time around, it's like if we pretended PACs didn't exist, the mayor raised $700,000 from $1,000 or less donations, and the closest person to him in fundraising raised $260,000. And the gap will be the same, if not worse, this time around, most likely for challengers. And that's without the PAC money.
Absolutely insane to me. It's like because it's a mayor race, this is not Senate or president or even Congress. It's a fucking mayoral race for a mid-sized city, right? Like Minneapolis is I would consider a mid-sized city.
I think there's opportunity, and don't quote me on this forever, but I think there's opportunity to explore total financial caps. Rather than saying each individual can give you $1,000, saying the total that a campaign can bring in is X amount of dollars it could be a better limitation for the system that we see here, because then it relegates what you can do. Like I was looking at some of the campaign spending from last time around, like $50,000 on like surveys and questionnaires alone, like in a month. It's crazy some of the spending that happens. And it puts challengers in a really difficult position.
So have you been following the New York mayoral race at all? And
I have.
I guess if Frey is Cuomo, like where do you feel like you fit in that race?
Yeah, I mean I think that we have 3. It's really similar. We have like a DSA challenger, which is currently Senator Omar Fateh. Like he is in this race and challenging Jacob Fry alongside me, and then myself. And then there's one other challenger who actually paused his campaign recently, and we aren't sure if he's going to come back or not. He said he is still deciding. Tragically, his mother passed away, and so he hasn't decided if he's going to come back. But in the same way, I think in what I firmly believe in is and this is like a psychology thing. There's been attempts to say don't rank X, like don't rank fry, and that has been tried in the past and has been tried in other jurisdictions. And what they find is psychologically that makes people feel not good about voting. It makes people feel kind of like not disenfranchised. It makes them feel like, oh, well, like God, so I'm just like a protest vote, I guess. Whereas the opposite that does work is saying, we want you to fully rank. We want you to fill out 1, 2, and 3, and we have great challengers for you to look at to do that. And that's what we need to do in Minneapolis. So when I talk to someone, I'm like, hey, like I need you. I would love for you to rank me first. And they're like, oh, actually, I'm in the DSA and I'm supporting Senator Omar Fateh. And I'm like, great. I'm so glad. I think he does a lot of really good things in the work that he already does. And we might disagree on a few things, but I think that's great. I would love for you to rank me second. And we have to do that work, or else no challenger will ever win. Because what I think people struggle to understand about ranked choice voting is that if there's 3 people and this person falls off, but all of their second choice votes were going to go to this person, then that person is likely going to win. If there's a coalition, we saw a coalition was just formed in New York City. If there's a coalition like that, and you know that all of those votes are going to come together, then that you can create a really big majority of voters really quickly.
For sure. And I think that it's just ranked choice voting, obviously we are for it like massively, as like we want democracy to be reformed, and we've talked to Steve Simon about it for statewide stuff, try to get it, and he said there's some issues with how it's being able to be implemented across the state. And
I still don't think Steve Simon's totally sold on it. So.
Yeah, I think
you guys need to talk to Jean Massey over at Fairvote, Minnesota. She would love to chat with you about it. She's truly the most senior expert in the space.
Okay. That'd be awesome.
Maybe we will. Yeah. Well, I guess just right back to your race, it just feels like ranked choice voting is still not really widely understood, and just it's a little bit of a disservice that we still are at this point.
Like I don't get it. Just rank the people you like in the order you like them. It's not that hard.
And so here's the thing. And bless his heart, my dad, I'm not lying to you, 35 minutes on the phone the other night trying to explain it to him. And he's like, I just don't. He's like, so does like a part of my vote go to the second vote? And I'm like, no, the whole thing. And I think the best one I've ever done, especially in our race, is, the challengers are underdogs, right? And so you would never tell your child to only apply to one college. You'd be like, oh, if you want to go to college, you should apply to many, and maybe you'll get the one that you wanted the most, and that's great, and you get to go there. But if not, like, you have a safety school. And in this system, you shouldn't vote for who you think is going to win or the college you think you're going to get into. You should go and apply to the college you want the most. And if you don't get it, then you'll get into the one that you'll think you'll get into. So I get frustrated if I talk to people and they're like, oh, yeah, I just don't think the campaign will have enough legs. It's like, well, it definitely won't if you don't rank us first.
Right.
And guess
That's
what?
The whole point.
And if you do rank me first, it takes that burden away.
Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to worry about it. You can vote your heart. You can go put whoever you want. You could vote Homer Simpson at the top of the card if you want, and then vote down the list, and the person you may have wanted least might still win, but you didn't sacrifice your vote. Your vote still went to that person when they finally hit that rank in there. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't understand why it's such a difficult concept to grasp, because that's what people always make the argument is, I just don't think that the American voting public is ready for it. They're not ready to understand such a complicated system. And I'm like, it's not that hard. Like, I don't know. We just need to have like American Idol or something do ranked choice voting for a few seasons. Like, that's how we sell it. We just do some stupid game show that's really popular, have them text in their ranked choice votes. That's how we need to fix this.
You need to hit up your boy George Soros and tell him to go fund that. Go fund that TV show.
Right after this, I'm gonna give him a call. Maybe Mark Cuban too. I got him on the line.
He's already. You know what? You should get Mark Cuban along and have him do a couple episodes on Shark Tank and do ranked choice. Should we fund this person, or what would be the best 3 to fund? Let's rank choice vote that.
Perfect. Absolutely.
There we go. Mark Cuban, I know you're listening.
The best
I know you're
billionaire
listening.
to fund.
Oh, shit.
All right. So, like, obviously, as you've acknowledged, you have some obstacles to the seat of mayor in Minneapolis, monetarily, and apparently, half-hour phone calls with the elderly trying to explain the voting system. So, how do you plan on overcoming those obstacles? Do you feel that this is a winnable race? Do you feel that there is actually a path to you that is viable to get there? And what is that?
Yeah, I think there is a path, and because I believe what the city of Minneapolis is truly looking for is my wife and I's favorite comment about someone. If we hang out with someone, we go to dinner with someone that we didn't know, it's like a friend of a friend, and we're there, and if we leave and get in the car and we look at each other and we're like, hey, gosh, they were normal. It's like the highest compliment you can pay to someone in my life right now. It's just like, man, they were just normal, and I can just appreciate a normal person that can sit down and have a normal conversation, and you don't feel weird, you don't feel like they're trying to game you over, you don't feel annoyed or they said something. And the city of Minneapolis is longing for someone that can just fill that role. They can be like, hey, I understand that fiscally we have to try to pay for all of these things, and we have a huge desire to do all of these great things because we're a progressive city that cares about people. And that's not a bad thing to fucking care about people, and we do. And then we have to look at a budget and say, how are we going to do this in the best way without blowing everything up, without raising our taxes, without hurting the residents within our city? And to come to a table and say this is going to be hard. That is why I believe that our campaign is going to be successful, is because people are just longing for that. I talked about the last race when with such a low approval rating and still winning. It's because people were just longing for someone to say, like, hey, I can stand in this tension and do the work. And that's what we're proving and showing to folks. But you're absolutely right. It doesn't come without raising a few bucks in the process.
Did the last race have ranked choice voting as well, or is this the first time?
It did, and I forget the exact number, it was two folks that were running, that two major candidates that were running. There were other people. There's, I think, 15, but two major candidates that were running, and they ran a strict don't rank Fry, rank us 2, 1, and 2 in whatever order you prefer. And their combined numbers didn't reach the viable number to beat Jacob's number. So they weren't successful in the race, unfortunately. But, I'm in this now, and so I give them all the credit in the world for giving it everything they had to try to do that. But we have a chance to do it now. Minneapolis, even more. And also in 2021, we're on the heels, or still in COVID. We all know the thing about people starting wars because it's easier to maintain a seat when you're going through really dramatic and traumatic things. And we were in that. Clearly, I'm not saying he started that. We were in a traumatic and difficult time, and so holding on to what the devil that sometimes is what people are longing for. And we're past that right now, and we're looking to the next chapter for Minneapolis. So, yeah, I absolutely think so.
Sort of, because obviously you just had the ICE raids there, and we don't know what's going to happen next. I do not feel like that's the last time that's going to happen, judging from kind of the vibes that this administration on the federal level has been giving. So,
yeah.
Hopefully he doesn't get his Iran here in Minnesota, so to speak, coming up. But
let's hope not.
No. I really
we're gonna arm ourselves nuclearly though, so like he's only got 2 weeks.
2 weeks away. We'll be 2 weeks away for the next 20 years, but we'll get there.
Say, what year was that clip from? Yeah,
like 2008 or something like that. I don't know.
No, we really appreciate you giving us your time in true Minnesota time management fashion. We should just start. No, if we acknowledge this is going to be an hour and a half show, it'll go to 2 hours every time.
Yeah, don't do it.
We're a half hour over as always.
Jess,
this has been a really great conversation.
I've already done that. That's why I booked these for an hour and a half now. Don't tell Jordan.
I won't tell him.
No. We really appreciate you coming on and giving us a little bit of your time. I had a really great time talking to you. I think this was a really excellent conversation. Especially like local politics has always the potential to be super fucking boring. And you have not made it boring. I do think that you have a lot of really interesting talking points and a very energetic way of talking about that, and I think that's promising. And I hope that this gets you a little bit more airtime in front of voters that can actually vote for you, since neither of us can. And we hope to be helping you kind of get across the line there in any way possible. Please, can people outside of Minneapolis donate to you? How's that $1,000 cap thing work?
As long as you are American U.S. resident or you have a green card, I guess. As long as you are within the United States, you can donate
legal
from
U.S.
anywhere.
Resident,
yeah, thank you. Legal U.S. resident. You can donate to the campaign. JazzForMayor.com. FOR, Jazz FOR, Mayor.com, not the number. I've forgotten that a lot. So JazzForMayor.com, you can learn more. If you want to volunteer, we phone bank, we door knock, whatever you want to do, you can do all of that if you don't live inside the city of Minneapolis. And especially if you're in Minnesota, listen, Minneapolis has large implications for what the rest of the state looks like and how things are going. And so we all have a desire to make sure that it's as successful as possible. So I really appreciate you all. I'm glad that it went an hour and a half. I had a great time. So I appreciate you all making the time and letting me jump on here.
Thank you so much. No, we had a great time. And absolutely, please, if you guys are hearing this, local politics is where actual politics happens across the board, and implications at state and local levels are really what makes the difference on the national level. And Taylor and I have talked about this, and if I get into it now, it'll be another hour that we're talking about it. But just trust me, bro, on this, or go back and actually watch where we've gone through and done the homework on it. But it is really important. Minnesota in general right now is a leader of the resistance on federal politics, and that resistance starts in our cities. Minneapolis is obviously standing up and making strong statements. Minnesota in general obviously just endured a heartbreaking tragedy, a horrible terrorist attack that has been spurred on by the fascism that is pushing forward, and leadership at our city level is so important to make sure that our citizens have the protections that they need to be able to continue to make these stances and the right messages go forward. So if you have anything that you can donate to help get Jazz here across the finish line, please do that, jazzformayor.com. If you can phone bank, volunteer a little bit of your time, please do that, because again, local politics affects us globally, and so that's really important. So please do that.
I appreciate it. Thanks you all. I loved the conversation, and let's do it again. I had a blast.
Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more offline here. There's a few things I want to talk to you about. But do you have anything, Taylor?
No, I guess, are you guys having a debate? Is there like any structure for that coming up that anybody should look out for?
Yeah, we've had 3 or 4 already.
Well, shoot, I'm behind the ball.
No, and we'll have probably a dozen more. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that we have a meet and greet that's actually coming up on Tuesday. And again, all these events are on our website as well in the events tab. We have a meet and greet coming up with all the candidates as well. But yeah, I really, that is one thing I'll say is I'm trying not to be Minnesotan. I try to say this in the right way. Like, I think if people are in the room and see all of us in the room, that the ranked choice voting will become really easy and clear, and I think we'll have a successful campaign. So we just got to get people into the room.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Jazz, for being here. As always, guys, the best support you can give us is listening or watching, but bills need to be paid. So we have subscription services available on YouTube, still on Patreon. We have our money links in my link tree on all of my social media. If you just want to, throw money at us, we appreciate it. Make it rain, all that sort of thing. We also have merch on my website, offtowagon.com. You can get Let Them Eat Toast merch. You can also get Off to Wagon merch. I just dropped some new merch that Addie, Taylor's wife, helped me design. It says, "Oh, nope, we will not be bullied," with a loon doing laser eyes on the O with Trump hair. It's great. You should check it out. Buy some. It's awesome. I'm really proud of it. But anyway, guys, thank you as always, and we will see you next week.
That's right. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.